She wasn't late. She wasn't confused. She wasn't trying to sneak in. Yet under the cold lights of a private aviation terminal, a black woman was physically blocked from boarding a jet that legally belonged to her. No shouting, no chaos, just quiet authority closing ranks, confident smiles, and the unspoken belief that she didn't look like someone who owned anything in that space. The pilot stood at the base of the stairs like a gatekeeper. Crew members watched with folded arms. Phones slowly came out. And in that moment, something familiar played out. Assumptions were made. Dignity was questioned. Power decided it didn't need proof. When she calmly said, "I'm here for my plane," the response wasn't curiosity, it was laughter. Because in places built for privilege, confidence is expected to wear a certain face. What happened next wasn't just an argument at an airport. It was a public demonstration of how quickly authority can become arrogance, how easily bias can disguise itself as procedure, and how silence can be mistaken for weakness. But this story isn't just about what they did to her. It's about what they didn't know. They didn't know who she was. They didn't know what she owned. They didn't know that every second of humiliation was quietly turning into evidence. In this video, we're going to walk through exactly how a routine boarding turned into a career-ending mistake, how power collapsed under its own confidence, and why this moment matters far beyond one runway. Because this isn't just a story about a jet. It's a story about dignity, perception, and what happens when the wrong people decide who belongs. The private terminal was quiet in the way expensive places usually are in a rush. It's no noise, just soft echoes and polished floors. A black woman stood near the base of the aircraft stairs, calm and composed, holding a small carry-on bag. To her, this was routine. To everyone watching her, it was a disruption. The pilot stepped forward without hesitation, blocking her path. As if rehearsed. "Restricted area," he said, his voice firm and confident. She didn't argue. She didn't flinch. She simply replied, "I'm boarding my flight." That sentence alone made people uncomfortable. A few steps behind the pilot, crew members exchanged glances. Someone smirked. Someone whispered. Confidence, when it doesn't match expectations, often invites suspicion. When she calmly added that the jet belonged to her, laughter followed, not loud, but dismissive, the kind meant to put someone back in their place. Phones came out. Time slowed. What should have been a simple boarding turned into a silent standoff, and without realizing it, everyone watching had already chosen a side. The pilot didn't move. Instead, he leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice as if authority worked better up close. "You're mistaken," he said. "This aircraft is privately owned." She nodded. "I know." That was all. The certainty in her tone didn't convince him, it irritated him. A flight attendant subtly raised her phone, pretending to check something while recording. Another crew member shook his head, already convinced the situation would end with security escorting her away. Woman reached into her bag to retrieve her identification. The pilot snapped sharply. "Don't move. Hands where I can see them." The words cut through the terminal. Conversations stopped. A few people gasped. Others leaned in. The humiliation was no longer subtle, it was public. She offered her ID. The pilot didn't look. "To see that," he said, "I know who belongs here." In that sentence, everything was revealed. Belonging wasn't about proof, it was about perception. And in his mind, she failed that test. Security arrived quickly, drawn by the tension and the crowd forming nearby. Moments later, police followed. Uniforms changed the atmosphere instantly. The pilot explained the situation with confidence, describing her as uncooperative, suspicious, refusing to leave a restricted area. Each statement was delivered calmly, professionally, and falsely. She tried again, her voice steady. "Please check my ID." One officer took the card, studying it carefully. His eyes moved from the name to her face, then back again. Out. Flickered briefly. Before he could speak, the pilot scoffed. That's fake. Anyone can make those." The officer hesitated, then handed the card back. Authority tends to trust authority. "Ma'am, we're going to need to verify this downtown," he said. The word handcuffs was mentioned casually, as if it were routine. Cameras moved closer. Someone laughed nervously. She didn't resist, didn't raise her voice. She allowed herself to be escorted away, knowing that arguing would only become the story instead of the truth. The patrol car door closed with a heavy final sound. To the people watching, it felt like resolution. To her, it was documentation. Inside the car, away from the crowd and the cameras, she finally moved. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled out her phone and made one call. "Stay where you are," she said calmly. "Don't say anything yet." There was no panic in her voice, only precision. The car drove a short distance to the terminal office, a place designed to handle problems quietly and keep discomfort out of sight. The manager listened to the pilot's explanation, nodding along, barely glancing at her. "She doesn't fit the profile," the pilot said confidently. The manager agreed. "Our clients usually look different." That was when she spoke again. "Check the tail number." Annoyed but compliant, the manager typed it in. His posture changed instantly. The screen reflected ownership records, billing history, and verified identity. The phone on the desk rang. Her phone rang at the same time. The manager's face drained of color. "Dr. Carter," the manager stammered, standing abruptly. Pilot laughed nervously, trying to recover. "That doesn't prove anything." The manager turned the screen toward him. It proved everything. Silence filled the room, thick and uncomfortable. They drove her back to the aircraft without sirens or lights. No one spoke. As they approached, the pilot stood confidently with the crew. "See," he said. "Handled." Then he saw her step out of the car. The manager rushed ahead, opening the door before she reached it. At the top of the stairs, the cabin door opened. A man stepped out, holding a thick folder. "That's her attorney," the manager said quietly. The pilot's confidence collapsed instantly. Inside the cabin, documents were laid out: contracts, clauses, highlighted violations. Each decision made that night now had a consequence attached. To it, the flight attendant began to cry. The pilot stared at the floor. The balance of power had shifted completely. The attorney spoke calmly, methodically. "You denied the owner access to her aircraft, involved law enforcement under false claims. You refused verification." The pilot tried one last move. "You still need us to fly." That was the moment she smiled for the first time that night. "I replaced you while you were calling the police." Termination was immediate. For cause. Security escorted the pilot and crew off the aircraft as rain began to fall outside. A new crew stood nearby, professional, prepared, silent. There was no drama, no shouting, just consequences. The jet was ready to depart without them. The same people who had laughed hours earlier now avoided eye contact. Authority had mistaken confidence for immunity, and it had failed. Weeks later, the video surfaced online. It spread faster than any explanation ever could. Millions watched. Outrage followed. Investigations were launched. Licenses reviewed. Statements released. Apologies issued. Careers stalled or ended. Through it all, she remained silent. She didn't give interviews. She didn't post statements. She didn't need to. The evidence spoke louder than words. The same silence that had been mistaken for weakness now became her strongest response. Accountability had arrived without her demanding it. Months later, the former pilot sat alone watching a news segment. Scholarship announcement filled the screen, funded by Dr. Carter, supporting young pilots from underrepresented backgrounds. Caption read, "Dignity is not optional." He turned the screen off. Somewhere above the clouds, she was already airborne, calm, and unbothered. And this time, no one questioned who owned the sky.